The Bad Guys is a perfect example of a story that has a very predictable plot, but honestly still manages to be engaging and interesting because it just has so much charm and style, and part of that is due to the fact that it is an animated movie. And now your first thought when I say that might be that since it's animated, then it's mainly targeted at kids, which means that it's full of the usual shitty humor, literally. And well, you'd be kinda right, but not really, because there's so much more to this movie and it's not fair to reduce it to anything less than what it actually is, which is just a very good heist movie, and not one specifically aimed at kids either. If anything, the movie, although it's stuck in, in a format where it needs to cater to kids, it still manages to tell a very well put story and a very competent story independently of the medium that's used, and if anything, the medium enhances it, and I'll go into that a little later. Basically, the story is about 5 criminals played by various monsters who try to hit the ultimate lick to cement their legacy as goat robbers, and that's goat robbers, G-O-A-T, not goat. Is that the plot of a lot of heist movies? Minus the monster part? Yes. And like I said, this movie isn't breaking down any barriers or anything, but it just excels at telling this exact type of story. And since it's an animated movie, like I said, there's more you can do with the concept of bad and good, as the main characters are literally animals that are usually considered bad, and you're able to explore the idea that maybe you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Unless... So, as with a lot of the movies that are aimed towards kids, there are lessons that are supposed to be learned by these kids, and by a lot of adults if we're being honest, all over the movie, but it still doesn't feel like it's really aimed at them all that much. And that's mostly because everything in the movie is very quick, is very snappy. The dialogue especially is very snappy, and honestly it just feels like it does what it has to entertain kids for a few hours, but meanwhile it's just a very competent heist movie with great action on its own. And not only great action, great fight choreography too. And there's admittedly not that many fights, if we're being honest. In fact, there's maybe 2 or 3 at the most. But the few fights that do happen are really enjoyable in my opinion, and that's in part due to the fact that they're so over the top thanks to the animation. There's a part specifically that I'm thinking about towards the middle of the movie where it's probably the biggest fight in the movie, I'd say. It really doesn't last that long, but it just has so much style, and it's just so enjoyable for that reasons. And all the chase scenes, especially the ones at the beginning, the very beginning of the movie, is very enjoyable, and all the ones throughout the movie are very enjoyable, and they're just enhanced by the fact that through animation they can do a lot more. And obviously through the fact that these characters are not humanoid, a lot of them are for example the snake or the tarantula or the fish man. Like, you can do a lot more, you can do a lot sillier things as well, and it just makes for a very interesting movie as opposed to just kind of a boring old typical heist movie, which also wouldn't have been a bad thing, but this movie just excels at really everything in that department. And again, the quality of the action and these fights is enhanced by the amazing animation style, and honestly the whole movie is. The animation is so smooth, and it has like a 2D 3D feel to it, kind of like Into the Spider-Verse, although I'm not saying I personally found it as good, obviously, or personally. I still think this movie has a super cool art style, and honestly it just oozes style in general. The characters are super charming, the animation is very stylish, and the outfit that they all wear directly indicate what kind of character you can expect them to be. And that's not something that's like super outlandish, but it's like these characters really stand out. And I think in an animation movie, it's important to have all your main characters really stand out, and they really succeed with this one. It's all very enjoyable because it feels like the movie was tailor-made to be enjoyed by people of literally all ages. And despite that, it still never feels tacky, or it never feels like it really tries to cater. I feel like it just naturally does because of how the story's told, because of the medium, and because of the story itself. To me, I find it kind of impressive that they're able to do this in a way that just feels natural. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a 9. I think, honestly, that it's about as close as a, I want to say, perfect animated movie I can possibly think of. I can't really think of any flaws. It didn't feel like it was too childish for people to enjoy, but it also felt like it wasn't taking itself too seriously. It was telling an interesting story without ever, losing its way, because again, it is a kids movie, and kids movies do tend to lose their way or be silly at moments where they don't need to be silly, just because again, it's a kids movie, it needs to cater to kids. This movie, I feel, doesn't do that. It allows itself to feel what it feels. It allows itself to tell its story, even though some parts are a little more down, a little less action driven. It still allows itself to tell its full story without being impeded by the medium that it's using. And all I gotta say is, you need to go see this with your kids. If you don't got any kids, you need to go see this by yourself. Honestly, it really doesn't matter who you go with or if you go with anybody at all. You just need to go see this, because honestly, it's really worth it, and I feel like it's kind of going under the radar.